a 3-pound 5.7 by 28 millimeter dual piston operated pistol, the Diamondback DBX. We finally got it in. Tabletop review and a field strip you're going to want to pay attention to coming up next on GBGuns. So here it is, long awaited for. Cool little pistol. Love these chamber flags, by the way. Easy to grab onto, and check that out. They even have little surfaces to help engage. Awesome when you go to ranges that dictate having these. So this is a pistol that I've been waiting for quite some time. Knew it was coming, wasn't sure what all it was going to be. I just knew something different was coming, and different it is indeed. Before we get into the gun, I want to show you the rest that comes in that nice flambeau case. Those cases, by the way, have Velcro straps and dividers. You get a Pro Mag 20 round magazine. One of the fun things about 5.7 is, yeah folks, that's 20 rounds. It takes the 5.7 style magazines, which are readily available because that gun has been out for quite some time. Here's our manual, and this is one you're going to want to pay attention to. Also, there's a QR code in here to scan for instructional videos, and I recommend checking those out if this video doesn't answer all of your questions. Nice big and bold Diamondback Firearms decal. And well, this is a gun of a different type. It has some really unique features that we're going to get into. The manual does a pretty good job of explaining things and showing with clear color photos. Props to Diamondback for doing that. This is not your basic 4-color manual, but it's something that I had to read and spend some time with before I wanted to put this thing on camera. You know, usually I just go cold, pull it out of the box, and run with it. I don't recommend that with this. You also get your pistol lock and this cotter pin, and this thing comes in handy. More on that in a bit. Let me clean up this stuff and we'll take a look at this gun, and I'll show you some of the features that I immediately noticed. Alright, so first things first, you notice it did not come with a brace. That's because of, well, all the drama that's going on with braces right now. Even though this is US produced, not imported, that ATF, we might be doing something later, was referring to imported guns, but which have always had strange rules applied against them. But Diamondback's just playing it safe. We plan on running it with one of these from SB Tactical so that we can get more stability on the gun, which of course makes it safer for us and everyone else around there. The last thing you want is an unstable firing position. Anyone who's done any shooting knows that. And then we're likely going to run the Lucid Optics Little Mo for a sight on it, because it's large enough. You see it's got a nice large window there, very crisp dot, but still small enough for something this size. And by size, what am I talking about? Well, 8-inch barrel, roughly 15-inch overall length. This thing only weighs 3 pounds. It is really, really light, and yet all metal construction. We've got aluminum receivers. You may notice that looks like an AR-15 style grip, because it is, and those trigger pins and the safety selector also AR, which is great. I'll show clear right quick, even though we already did that when we pulled the flag out. That's for the YouTube safety monsters. So you do have some parts availability there. We're going to run it stock because that's the way we do it. I would really like to change this trigger out, but I don't want to do that before the test because that's not fair to the firearm, nor is it fair to you, the viewers. I've never liked it when people modify guns before reviewing them, because then the results you're seeing are not the results that you will get unless you replicate that build out. So, no modifications other than a brace for safety and stability and a sighting system. So what is this thing? Well, we've got aluminum receivers, a charging handle that is angled, and you know, when I first saw this in the box, it's like, oh man, my charging handle's bent. No, that is actually just a piece of brilliance, because now when you grab, you can grab easily without raking your knuckle on this rail or the optic. And it is reversible. You can pop it over to the other side, I just like it on this side because that makes locking the bolt open that much easier. One hand on this side, one hand on the other. So we've got our aluminum receivers. They're nicely stylized. A little bit of flare on the magwell. Not a whole lot though. This is a double stack, double feed magazine, so the magazine doesn't serve as your magwell like it would on other pistols, but it's not that hard to do, and considering the short mag is 20 rounds, I don't think reloads are going to be happening all that often. Our handguard here has M-lock all the way around and nice corners to make it very comfortable. The gun is very thin. I mean, it feels like you're just holding a book. It's very comfortable. Sorry millennials, I know you're not too confident as to what a book is, but those of us that have held them, they feel about like this. Through this window, if I can get the light to hit it right, you can see a little number there. That's because the gas piston system is adjustable, and you can see through a number there. I'll show more clearly when I field strip this. With a screwdriver through the front, you can adjust this through different systems, even for running suppressed. We are not going to test any of the subsonic loads for this because, well, subsonic 5.7 is a 40 grain bullet moving at subsonic speeds. That sounds an awful lot like 22 LR, and that's pretty much the energy you get out of subsonic 5.7. You're just paying a whole lot more for the ammo, so we're going to run supersonic loads only. Diamondback's own flash hider, possibly a brake, we'll see, because it does have those little ports in there. Come around the other side, we can see another window and the number 2 in there. That's what the gas setting is on here. That's our bolt catch and release. Lock open and drop. And our safety and trigger and everything are in position as you'd expect for an AR. So everything as far as shooting feels very AR-ish, just with an external charging handle, which can also serve as an assist if need be. But the trigger that comes on this feels a little heavier than GI. Just pulls and breaks, nothing too notable. That reset, very GI AR. Everything seems fine. So what would you use this for? This is a PDW if I've ever seen one. Very light and compact, easy to transport, and as far as the power you get out of 5.7, well, that depends somewhat on the barrel. We plan on chronographing this 8-inch barrel with the 2 loads of 5.7 we have. This is being filmed late October of 2020, so getting our hands on 5.7 isn't exactly the easiest thing to do. But what's really cool about this thing is the way it works. It's a locked breech, dual piston operated. Very unique, very different inside. That also means that field stripping is different from what you might expect for a lot of reasons. And we will show that coming up next as we field strip this thing. You may want to have some note paper ready or your own DBX to compare to, because some things are quite a bit different than you might expect. Not that it's impossible, not that it's necessarily difficult, it's just different. And so like any gun that has a different operating system, there's some learning to be done. So first things first, to field strip, you're going to need a hammer and punch. This is a brass one. I would have preferred my polymer one, not sure where it went. Also, this cotter pin that came with it, or a small nail, anything of similar strength, you'll see what that's for later. Before the eye rolls begin, I want you to appreciate the engineering that went into making this thing. We're going to check clear and lock the bolt open. I know that sounds weird. Step 1 of things being different, right? And you're going to need the punch to knock your takedown pin and pivot pin, not only because Diamondback has their own receiver setup here that is very precisely machined, but also this whole system is pre-tensioned as part of the way of holding on to the trunnion. It's interesting. So you've got to overcome that pre-tension, which is why we're punching those pins. And you feel it release. as you take things apart. So here's our lower, and you can see that looks very much like an AR trigger. All of your basic parts there look AR. I believe they are compatible. It make it easy to swap or upgrade if you want. Just keep in mind not all upgrades are upgrades. And here's our upper receiver. We're going to slide the handguard forward to get it off. And if you look in there, there are some pins inside these little notches. Those catch here. That's what holds it on, along with some clamping. You can see the ears here for where the pivot pin goes through are slightly angled. They put some pressure on here. Everything is squeeze fit, if you will. I guess is a way to describe it. Keeping the bolt locked open, looking down inside this hole. Come on, light. Let me grab my flashlight. So now armed with my weapon light, there you go. You're going to see that little round head in there. You're going to push on that. Moves an eighth of an inch or so. First, we're going to remove the charging handle, because that's going to keep things out of the way. It just pulls out. So we're going to push on that tail and grab the barrel around about the gas block and kind of rock it back and forth to get it up and out. There we go. Important you keep that pressure on the tail end there, because it's got your head rod in this massive, very strong spring. We can set that aside. Now lift the action out. You're also going to want to pay attention to this little spring right here. I'm going to leave it in the upper receiver and just leave that upwise, but if you're going to be cleaning or wiping or anything, obviously pull that spring out and set it to the side. Here is our action. And this is the bolt catch. It just rests in there. Zoom in and take a look at all this. And check out this barrel. There's your adjustability on the gas block. You can see the number of divots on there to represent the different settings. And these are the little pistons. Isn't that wild? Here's your bolt and carrier. You can see it's a spring-loaded bolt. And the firing pin itself is also spring-loaded. That will help against slam fire. Now, lubrication points are going to be around that cam pin and around this bolt. In fact, I'm going to grab some oil and add some lube to this because it is quite dry. And this process is not one I want to have to repeat on the range. So recommended lubrication, as I said, is going to be around the top of this surface and of course the bottom. That's where camming action goes. And then around here where the bolt rotates and slides. Wow, so man, it's pretty dry. And, you know, in the past we've tested things pretty much how they come out of the box, but that's been on systems that I already knew and was familiar with. And this being a unique operating system, I want to experience it as intended to begin. Polished feed ramps there. Sorry about the lighting. I don't know why it's not picking up on that stuff today. But alright, so that is field stripping this thing. Now to get it back together. Alright, to reassemble, this is where that cotter pin is going to come in handy. We're going to start by getting our spring back into its home. You'll notice that this piece has a half moon shape, or it's got a flat edge. You want that flat edge to be opposite of the bolt itself. And when you push this all the way through, you'll find there is a small hole in that rod. That's where the cotter pin goes. There you go. And the smart way to do it is to have the cotter pin head down. So cotter pin head is the same side as the bolt. That makes things a whole lot easier. The cotter pin is now holding all the pressure of that super wicked spring. We're going to set this head back into its little notch in here. And grabbing the bolt, or the carrier, not the bolt itself. You want to make sure that bolt is seated all the way forward. I'm going to pull back a little bit and remove the cotter pin. Now when you do this, your hand, these fingers, are going to be grabbing all the strength of that spring. So be aware of that. Of course, it'd be easier if the cotter pin would just slide right out. When you do this, once that's in place, because I'm going to do this rather quickly, you're going to be guiding that tip into its home back here on the top of the gas block. You're also going to want to make sure that your bolt catch is in the up position. So when it's up, you can see it's obstructing that tube. Up is obstructed, down is clear. And make sure that stays up to hold on to all that force for you. So to get this done, tilt at an angle, we're going to hold this pressure, get that cotter pin out, and guide everything back to its home. This is much easier done, not trying to do it tabletop video style with a camera in front of you. There's the hole. I'm missing. I'm just going to use the bolt for the meantime. It's much easier to hold. So what's happening is I'm missing that hole there. Sorry guys that my camera setup doesn't always work ideal for these things. Had to do that off camera a couple times. Just had some struggles with it. It's not easy, but that's because it's different. It's something that hasn't been learned yet, something we're not used to. Once everything is back in here, you can go ahead and release your bolt stop and let things go forward. You can also get our charging handle back in here. Make sure that stuff works. The bolt release up, it held it in place. Drop the bolt release carefully with your fingers out of the way. Everything goes back. Now we're going to remount the handguard. Once again, we have these pins in these slots, and those pins rest in these ears here. And it pops back with everything flush. You're going to notice that the eyelets here are not quite fully aligned. That's because there is some pre-tension that needs to be applied when putting it back on the lower. This is a part that I particularly have struggled with a few times. It's one of those that just kind of, when it goes, it goes. So get your lower back to the upper, get that pin started, and you want to squeeze on the upper. You can see the aluminum flex there a little bit to apply some of that pressure, and with your mallet give some assist and you'll get that pin in eventually. It does take a little bit of convincing. I've found it easier to go ahead and get the rear end back together so you don't have a piece flopping around here. And it's going to take some hand strength and some pressure on here to get this back in line. I'm going to once again do that off camera so that you're not having to listen to me whack on this thing. That's now back together. What worked for me was holding the base of the gun against my stomach so that I could pull back, applying pressure with my thumb here, and squeeze with the meaty part of my palm, and then while tapping on that pin, it went in. Now it seems kind of like you're forcing things, but that's because, well, you are. There is pre-tension that's holding that trunnion in place, and pre-tension on the, you've got your barrel system resting in that little notch up top. You've got a system back here. You've got a very strong spring that is easy to rack, but is strong to fight with your fingers. So there's a lot of things in there that make it not the easiest for field strip. But once again, that's because it's just a new system and a different way of doing things. And I really appreciate that Diamondback did that. Guys, it gets boring reviewing hundreds and hundreds of guns that all have the same operating system, because there's only so many ways that can be tweaked. So this being a completely new system, I'm excited to get to the range with it. And once again, once you have it all back together, you want to check your basic functions. So we'll check bolt lock worked, release worked, safety works, put it on fire, we get fire, we get trigger reset, fire again. This gun is ready to go. So we're going to mount up that Lucid Optics Little Mo and the SP Tactical Brace. We were able to find 2 loads of 5.7 that we will test for function, for accuracy, and if the weather holds, we'll get a chronograph out there too to see what kind of energy we're getting out of this thing. 5.7x28 is an interesting round. Those of you that aren't familiar with it, it was designed to try to give law enforcement and military a lighter, easier to carry around that would still be good against some body armor. Unfortunately, that body armor penetrating ammo is not really available, but it's still a light, fast load that puts out some impressive numbers sometimes in some guns. So really looking forward to that. It has a different kind of recoil impulse than you might be used to or expecting. And this adjustable gas system started on 2 out of the box. I'm looking forward to seeing how soft we can make this thing shoot, because really at well, just over 15 inches in overall length, throw a folder on there for your brace, you're looking probably 16-17 inches overall length. This could be a great option for truck gun, backpack gun, things like that, to deliver more power than most of your small things, but still be a high capacity, lightweight, easy to carry gun. So I'm looking at this as kind of a replacement for my Scorpion, the VZ, not the CZ Scorpion. My little VZ Scorpion is awesome in 380. Curious to see how this works in comparison with that. It's a little bit bigger of a platform, and yet it feels lighter, I think mostly because of this all aluminum receiver setup. That's the DBX tabletop review and field strip. Give you a rundown of the gun, how it works. Next we'll hit the range and give you our shooting impressions of this thing, as well as what kind of results we can get out of it using the setup that I've described. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the range.